Yes, welcome everybody. Today we're here again with a new Lightning Talks, this time about AI and front-end, of course. Well, 7 o'clock, it's a nice time. Maybe you already ate, maybe you will dinner sometime. At least we have some good vibes today here. For now, one question for you in the chat. We have some statements in the end, just mentioned it before the recording. Please think about it. This is an informal setting. It's also like a setting where everybody can learn. So experts are here, but also junior developers. So feel free to help each other out. In that case, you can share links, you can share your experiences, etc. With the Frontend Lighting Talks, it's not our first rodeo, but for today, let's look at the program. We will do a small introduction. Then Supercharge Your Productivity, Mastering the Crafting AI Prompts Framework will be presented by Jeroen. And then afterwards, Sven will present about AI front-end for non-Frontenders, which I think will be very interesting as well, me being the front-ender and your host of today. And then we will have discussions. In the end, if there are questions left, then it's also fine. But it will be way in the end. So, the presenters, the first one who will speak is Jeroen, tech lead here at Society. And he will do, of course, a very nice presentation about mastering your productivity. Yeah. I will be your host, Chen, by the way, I almost forgot. And Sven and Shahryar created the presentation for front-end for non-Frontenders. Shahryar is unfortunately sick. We wish him all the best, but he worked very hard for this presentation. But Sven will carry the weight.
Yes,
I would say, yes, definitely. So this session is facilitated by Society. I work for Society. In that case, it's also Studio Society, but it is not a recruitment talk. We are here for you guys and for ourselves to join in technical expertise and knowledge and just share the fun as well, because it's really important to have it in the evening, of course. So she does lots of things, front-end community. We are with 80 persons, and I think lots of designers of front-enders are included in there. But we do way more. Cloud, security, DevOps, Microsoft as well. We have people in the back at the cameraman who is from Microsoft. That's nice to see their combined joint efforts. But in general, we have lots of clients. Most of them you probably know. There are top 200 clients, Rabobank, PostNL, you name it, and we probably got it. So we like to share the knowledge with each other during these sessions because we all work at different clients. Well, without further ado, I think it's time for Jeroen. Jeroen will share his screen and we'll talk about mastering your productivity. So
yes,
thanks. Take it away, Jeroen.
I'm going to share my screen. If someone can mention it.
That's good. And if there are questions for Jeroen, put them in the chat. They will be answered after the presentation. So Jeroen, let's go.
Thank you, Christian. Yeah, I'm going to talk about Supercharge Your Productivity, Mastering the Crafting AI Prompt Framework. And maybe it's a bit a weird title if you're reading this the first time. But if you're going to conferences right now, or maybe you're going to LinkedIn, everyone is there right at the moment. So if you're going there, you probably see a lot of things about AI. And what you also see there is that people are talking about how to use APIs and all those kind of things, how to build an application, but they're not talking about prompt engineering. And that is what I'm going to tell you about today. I'm going to give you some highlights, how you can use it and how you can make your job a bit better after today. So let's dive into that. But before I do, we just had dinner, of course, also. Let's make you think a little bit. Imagine your peer is not using an IDE. Well, we are all front-enders, or we are working with it. So how would you respond on that? How would you respond if one of your peers is mentioning, yeah, I'm not using an IDE, I just use a text editor, or think about it yourself, but not an IDE. How would you respond on that?
Surprise face, yeah.
Think about it for a moment. Meanwhile, I will introduce myself. I'm Jeroen Egelmeers, a full stack developer at Society, public speaking as well. So right now here, but also on conferences and other places. My main focus as full stack developer is React and Java. So yeah, that's the fun part here. I think that I can also join the Frontend Lighting Talks and other front-end sessions. But currently I'm a tech lead at Bovemai and IT trainer at Spectrum Multimedia IT. And you can see that on the bottom of my slide that I've been at a lot of different companies already. I've seen there are a lot of cool things, but that's not where I go to talk about, because I want to talk about that question that I just stated. This is actually reality right now, because people are now using an IDE, of course. You are probably doing that, hopefully. But AI is still not used that well. And definitely if we're talking about ChatGPT or any other application that AI, the models that are in there and that you can use to really enhance your productivity, then I'm asking you, are you really using that right now already? So let's dive into that and understand how it works, so that you will probably use it as well after today. But I'm talking about prompt engineering. I'm talking about ChatGPT. For those who doesn't know what this actually is, I'm giving a brief introduction to it. If you are looking to ChatGPT, you can see that right now on the right side of your screen. That is actually what it is. So it's a chat box where you can enter a message, and if you enter it, you will receive an output from ChatGPT. And entering that message in ChatGPT is actually entering your prompt. So that is also what prompt engineering is, writing the right prompts, because everyone can write something in a chat box, but really writing a good prompt that gives you the result that you're expecting is from a different level. So that is very important, because context is key within ChatGPT. It won't turn you in the greatest writer of all time, and also not the best programmer or tester whatsoever. You really need to give it the right inputs to actually get you the right results, so the output from ChatGPT. And yeah, I can talk about that for hours, but let's just get some hands-on experience and some examples. So imagine that you are a student from the high school, from the first year, and you're getting an assignment to write an essay about World War II. Then this would probably be something that you write to ChatGPT, right? So you get this from your teacher and you write to ChatGPT, writing an essay about World War II with 100 words, because that was the assignment. Now then ChatGPT will give you this as the output. I did this myself, and this was the result. Now, if you are sending this to your teacher, definitely from the first class from high school, then they will probably raise some red flags at your teacher, because they are reading this every year and they have similar assignments every time over and over again. So they will probably see that you are using words that people normally from the first class of high school are not using. So, well, probably they are going to have a discussion with you, or even not, and they just will tell you, yeah, you didn't make it because you're using AI tools. But if we are changing this prompt and we are making giving the right context to ChatGPT and letting him know what we actually are and what we want as an output, then you will get another result. So we're changing this up a bit. We are actually telling ChatGPT right now that I am a student with A2 English, so you have different grades in your English level. So I have A2 at that moment. I'm in the first class of high school, and I don't want it to use any difficult words. Now, this is a very basic prompt, but already way better than the one I used before. And you can also see that out by the output from ChatGPT right now. Because what you see here is actually something that I could send to my teacher if I'm at the first class of high school. And he will hopefully not have any red flags and give me that grade that I want. So that is really where it is all about. So writing the right prompts is essential if you're using ChatGPT. Now, and I've been having a lot of talks already about this subject because I'm really passionate about it. I really love to talk about it, also to speed up my own productivity. When using those kind of tools, it really helps me make better presentations or assignments for my IT training, or even when I'm working at clients to, well, really speed up my productivity. But when having talks to people, they mainly came to the same question all over and over again. And that was, how do I actually write the right prompt? And I've been thinking about that. Of course, I had that already, something in my slides, but not really in depth. So that is why I started creating the crafting AI prompt framework. And this really helps me to, well, write better prompts. And actually, it's already used by quite some people, also where I got some pretty good feedback from. So that's where I want to talk about in the next part of this presentation to help you understand how to write that good prompt. So if we are talking about the Crafting AI prompts framework, then you have three phases. First of all, we are going to create the prompt. So you're really going to type that message. And this phase has, well, some items that are components that are really important to think about during the crafting phase. Then we are going to validate our prompt, because it's not only important to think about what you're sending to those kind of models, because, for example, ChatGPT is, well, used by other companies. And a good example here is that lately there was a bug in the chat history where all your chats are saved and other people were able to read your chat. So if you're saving there any information from your company or think about the production code, and this would be visible to other users, and well, that's not really something you want. So you want to check in validation phase if you are compliant to that. And finally, well, you want to think about, can this be done even better? So maybe enhance or adapt and improve your prompt to, well, get really the right output, because you can still be interactive on everything you do. So let's get to the crafting phase. So we are going to write that message. We are going to write that prompt. And then there are a few components that are really important. I already mentioned context. So if you want ChatGPT to do something, then it should know what it should do. So for example, let's make an example that we are going to write a LinkedIn post for this presentation on the end to post on LinkedIn. Then I first have to tell ChatGPT where this presentation was about. So I have to tell it that it was about mastering Crafting AI prompts framework, where I was going to talk about, and maybe who were here on the table, we had discussions, etc. All things that I should bring to ChatGPT as context to let it know where it should write a message about. Then it's important to mention the register. And this is actually a quite expensive word, I think, if you're asking me for a writing style. But there is a bit more in it. So, for example, which formality you want to use, tone or grammar, all things that you can consider and that you can think of what ChatGPT should use. So, for example, if you want to have it a very specific English level, which I did in the previous example, you can give it English level A2 to mention that you don't want to use too difficult words. Well, there are a lot of other things. Maybe you don't want it to be too excited, or you want to be really formal. Those are things that you can mention in this part. Then we are going to the acting rule. So we want to write a LinkedIn post. So it would be very nice if a LinkedIn expert can write me that LinkedIn post. And if you're mentioning that as the acting role to ChatGPT, then it will read in their model how people write normally on a higher level their LinkedIn post and how you can get the most possible engagement and use that for the output of your, well, prompt. So that's very important to mention, because then you're really sticking to a part of the model which you want to achieve. Another thing you can do here is specify the point of view. So for example, maybe we have discussions today and I want to know the point of view from other people. How do they probably think about that? Then you can also ask that to ChatGPT if you mention this from this point of view. Then the format. If I'm writing a LinkedIn post, then maybe I want to use emotions or bullet points, some hashtags, those kind of things. That's something you can mention here. If you're, for example, mentioning that the acting role is a LinkedIn expert, then it probably will already use those kind of things. But be specific. The more information you bring to ChatGPT, the more specific the output will also be. And if you have any abstraction, then that will also be probably the case what ChatGPT will do to you. But also, for example, if you want to write test cases or something, you really can mention which table format you want to use and how the output should look like, and how this should look like in the response. So all things that you really should specify, and also how this should look like in the output. And finally, you want to achieve something. So I want to write a LinkedIn post, or I want to make it write a LinkedIn post. So mention that as well. So what should it achieve? What is your goal to achieve with that prompt? So for example, write me a LinkedIn post, or summarize this PDF file, or translate this text. I'm really using this a lot for anything you can think of if you're talking about text-based things. So really, this is what you should think of if you want to use those kind of words. But there is a complete list here, and I will give you even more of them on the end of this presentation. Then we are going to the validation phase. So we did create that prompt, but there are a few things that you want to consider before actually sending it to, for example, ChatGPT. First of all, is it interactive? What you can do is you can write a prompt and then ask if it's clear to ChatGPT, and then follow it up in your next prompt. But you can also, for example, if I'm writing that LinkedIn post, or making it write that LinkedIn post, answer again with a new prompt on it to, well, maybe rewrite it, or to change the second alinea or something. That is something you want to verify if you your prompt is interactive and not a yes or no question or something like that. Then a very important one is the non-disclosure part. What I already mentioned is that the history tab on the left side of ChatGPT, here are all your chats stored that you actually used previously. You don't want it to be in the wrong hands. So for example, if you're using anything that is from your company or from clients or other people, and think about that twice before you're actually sending it to ChatGPT, to make sure you're, well, considering, for example, GDPR restrictions. So really check that. Are you not sharing anything that is violating those kind of things to ChatGPT before sending? Because if you're sending it, then it's too late. It's already on their servers. So think about that before you actually send it to ChatGPT. And then finally, is it goal-driven? So is it clear enough what I'm sending to ChatGPT or any other model, what I want to achieve? Or are there still some open ends, or is it too abstract? And try to fix that before sending it, because it will actually, well, win on the long run. And finally, you have the adapt and improve. So you send your message to ChatGPT, and now you get a response, and you're actually going to check, well, is this the outcome I did want, or is it actually in line with what I expected, or should I still adapt and improve the things, and should I change things to my prompts to make it even better? So this is actually the baseline of what the framework is, and where you have to think about while writing prompts. And if you have this all together, you're getting to a prompt like acting as a role, and you specify that, for example, as LinkedIn expert, perform task in format requirements, use register writing style, and use this context. So, for example, if I want to write a LinkedIn story or a post, I can write something like acting as a LinkedIn expert, write me a LinkedIn post in, and then format requirements could be anything you can think of. So I want that LinkedIn post. So for example, I want some bullet points, and I want some emotions to use. Use register writing style. So I want to use English B2, for example, not that it's a C2 and it's using very expensive words, but just that it's a bit formal. Maybe I want to mention that as well. So it's a formal tone, and use the context that I mentioned earlier. So everything I can think of about this presentation. I can tell you one more thing about this, which is really nice, because maybe this is a lot of information, and you can read more about it on the website I mentioned below. But what you can also do is copy and paste the framework, and you will be redirected to a LinkedIn post that I created where you can actually read it. Copy and paste it to ChatGPT, and then you can actually ask ChatGPT to write you the right prompts. And this sounds a bit the other way around, but that's the fun of it. So you can actually make ChatGPT write you the prompt, that ChatGPT is writing you a prompt, which you can use again to ChatGPT to get the desired outcome. And I did that here, so it works, but play around with it. I think that using the framework by your own, so understanding how the model works, is even better, but this is a nice start, I think. Then, I mentioned already the non-disclosure part, that it's very important and that you should really think about it. One thing that I did want to mention next to this is, what if you want to share or you want to use information from your company, or you want to write a story where company names or people are in the output? What you can do then is using placeholders. So for example, what you see on the right side of the screen right now, I asked to write a LinkedIn post about today. And but I don't know yet if I can call the company name or the people who invited me for this talk. So what I did is I made some placeholders, and you can do that in any form you want. So think about your very own language or whatever you want. I did it with in curly braces. And then ChatGPT will also do that for you. So you will get actually the place where you can later put that company name or a person. I'm not sure if in this screenshot, really on the bottom of the output where I cut it off, there you can also see person A and person B, which I also mentioned in my prompt. So this is really a way you can play with the outcome, but also be compliant to the non-disclosure part. And this is just one example. There are many more, but I only have 50 minutes, so I stick to this right now. And finally, I can imagine that this is a lot of information and that I'm going quite fast through it. But there are two things that you really should do. First of all, just play with it, try it out yourself, find out what goes well and what goes wrong. But I also created this cheat sheet that you can actually use to remember you what you should try to get to your prompt. So for example, that context and what should be in that context, or what can you use in those context criteria, or register writing style, the acting role, and what kind of acting roles you can think of, etc. So read it for yourself whenever you want, and you want to play with it. That will probably help you a lot to get into it. So what I really hope that I have achieved with this presentation is that you are not the peer without knowledge about prompt engineering or who is not using it, like I mentioned with that IDE. But start learning it, because it's still very upcoming and it's changing rapidly. So if you're starting now, that's great, and it will really speed up your productivity because I'm using it already for quite some time now. And well, people, if they are seeing me using ChatGPT or any other models, then they're really amazed a lot of times how fast I can do things right now, which took me hours before. So definitely worth watching. And think about this, because I really like this quote, and that's why I put it always in my slides. AI will not replace you, but people who use it will. So on the end, I don't think that frontenders, that you will lose your job, or whoever in the developers you can think of, but people who are going to use AI models and are going to use AI to speed up their productivity are, they have a much more worth, or how do you say that? They are more worth than other people. So they will be probably asked earlier than others. So that is the person you should think about. So start using it. It will really help you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeroen. Small applause here in the studio, and also online as well. Oh, well done. There's one question in the chat. Okay. What is a good way to get code in this framework? I sometimes struggle to give it complex coding context.
And then you mean you want to have like production codes, or?
I think general code solutions. So it's easy to give like, all right, how do I do stringify JSON, for instance, with more complex code?
Yeah, first of all, I think I didn't mention that in this presentation. Maybe it was a good addition. But if you're going to use any code, think about it as Stack Overflow. So you're going to send this code to Stack Overflow because even though it might feel like a safe environment, it's still kind of buggy a lot of times. Definitely if we're talking about ChatGPT. I mentioned that history tab already, but there are many more examples. You can Google it and you will find some issues around that. So think about ChatGPT, about Stack Overflow, how you would post it there. And that is also the way I should ask ChatGPT, but with the right actor. So for example, ask it to be a student who should explain you that part of code. Then it will be on a way lower level than if you're just asking it in general, because then you will get probably also a very abstract answer, the best it could be, which is still maybe very difficult to understand.
Nice. I see there's another question. Is crafting AI framework an actual application/technical framework, or is it a way of formulating a question more completely?
It is really a way of formulating how you should create your prompt. So this is also why I did it. A lot of people are every time asking, how do you write a prompt and what should be in there? And there are a lot of people thinking about it. And I came up with this one because if you're really reading the OpenAI website and where they're thinking about, then everything from that is in here. Not maybe on the top level components, but deeper inside. That's also why that cheat sheet is made, that you actually have all the lower layers in it as well.
Nice. And I was actually really surprised by the quote you mentioned about the IDE. I was like, well, if somebody is in my team that doesn't use an IDE, oh, I don't know what I do. I would probably go away there.
Yeah,
but maybe in a few years, it's the same for AI, I guess. So that really opened my eyes. It was nice to see. Didn't expect that one, at least. I see there are no more questions. So if there are any, well, you can join the discussions later, of course. And we are still also, Jeroen will be here the whole evening. So it will be. Okay, we will go to our next presentation. That will be Sven.
All right.
Yes, you can start sharing your screen.
Yeah, I will take send the stage then.
Yes, you can take the stage indeed. In the meantime, also a small special announcement. During the discussion, we have two special guests. They're currently still sitting over there. It was really spontaneous action. But that's also an invitation to you guys. If you have a statement, you can think about one. And you can put it in the chat and we can discuss that statement as well. So it's not only our statements, also your statements at home. So feel free to join the discussion later on. But first now, small applause for Sven. And let's go, Sven. Take it away.
All right. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the presentation, Jeroen. It was really nice. I'm going to talk about front end for non-Frontenders today. And yeah, that might seem like a bit of a curious title, actually. But the thing is, the reason why we've been asked is because we're part of the data science team, but we also have some affinity with creating front-end applications. So let's get into who we actually are. So my name is Sven Hendrikx. I work as a data scientist at the AI community of Sogeti. We do super fun stuff. I work a lot with generative AI. We work on really cool projects around that, testing it, finding applications for it, trying to integrate it into our workflows. So and I have to say, I find it incredibly exciting as well, and super cool. You might see there's a second name on this presentation. Unfortunately, as Chrétien mentioned, Shahryar couldn't be here. He is sick, but yeah, he did great work on the demo that we have for this presentation. So small spoiler, but also yeah, the presentation itself. So thanks a lot, Shahryar. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here. Yeah, so let's get into it. Actually, what is this presentation going to be about? So we have built a demo because we didn't quite know what to tell you guys, right? We are not front-enders, so how are we going to teach you anything? It had to be front-end related. So we were like, okay, we're gonna do a demo. We're gonna just build a use case. We'll come up with a use case and we're gonna build it, and we're just gonna see how fast can we do it, start to finish, and what kind of we're gonna of course use ChatGPT as much as possible, but also we really wanted to get like a nice AI use case embedded in that as well. So it's going to be a bit of both, right? So as you can see, the demo is about building a React app to search through React documentation. And the idea is that, of course, right, maybe React is not the most logical or it might not fit your use case, but you can see how this would be a very useful tool to search through your company documentation. Maybe you have some documentation from your code on your own, right? And you wanna do some similarity search on that. Well, that's actually pretty easy right now. So let me run you through it. First, I'm going to talk about the objectives. What is it exactly that we're trying to achieve? I'm going to walk you basically through the prompting process, which Jeroen told you about. And then, unfortunately, we didn't use crafting AI, so next time we definitely will. And at the end, we're of course going to look at the demo. There's going to be some sprinkles of thoughts that we have about it, because it's been pretty free form, as I said before, just to keep you guys on track about what we've been thinking while exploring these new opportunities, right? So let's get into it. The objectives. Develop a React app without learning React. I guess many people have tried it. No, this is not a Wix commercial. We're actually gonna try and write. We're gonna copy code and do a bit of adjustment here and there. But just from having coding knowledge, right? We know a bit of JavaScript. We're gonna try to get this thing up and running. It has to look nice. It has to work. And yeah, it has to be a great single use case web page to use, right? I can already tell you we did get there, but not just by using ChatGPT. So I think we can also learn a little bit about what are the restrictions of ChatGPT? How can you use it? How might you not be able to use it, right? You might, if you write the right prompt, you might be able to use it. But yeah, there's some stuff about that in here as well. And as well, we also want to showcase a use case of AI, as I told you, right? So let's get into the prompting. This is I'm going to run you through the prompts that we use to build this, and then I'm going to show you basically the first draft that we got out of ChatGPT, and yeah, you can make up your own mind. I'm already telling you. So first prompt, using React, write a one-page app which has the following components: a block of header text, which explains the purpose of the web app, use a placeholder for now, a drop-down menu, which lets the user select some option, retrieve the contents from the documents endpoint, a text box with a submit button, which takes the text and the input from something that is behind my a pop-up window from the drop-down menu, and performs a GET request on the prompt endpoint. After the user presses submit, two pieces of text are returned as a list. Display the content in two separate divs below the input field. Right? It's quite a bit, but it's also pretty specific, right? This, of course, doesn't have any backend yet, so we wanted to set up a bit of dummy backend on our own as well to get everything up and running and basically like get some scaffolding there. So I want to run you through those quickly as well. Those are very easy. Since we're data scientists, we're much more used to Python, so that's what we use for the backend. That's what Fast API refers to. We said, write a Fast API get endpoint called documents, which returns a list of placeholder documents, right? The documents that we want to scroll through in the front end. Great, now we'll write the prompt endpoint, which for now can just be returned two placeholder text. So that's the other the part where the backend returns something to this front end, so that the front end has something to play around with, right? Now, as you can see, there's already a yellow bar in there as well, and it's not yellow for no reason. It says, now add styling to the code below, such that it looks as smooth as a Streamlit one-page app. Now, I want you guys to think a little bit about that prompt and try to kind of conjure up your gut feeling and yeah, maybe make up a statement about what was good about this prompt, right? Or maybe what's pretty bad about this prompt. Let's first get to what we got as output from this whole ordeal. Right, there it is in all its beauty, right? It is actually a working web app. We don't have this as a demo. Trust me, this is you don't have to be afraid because yeah, as you can see, this is not the buttery, smooth, streamlit aesthetic that we're looking for, right? This is more like the brutalist 90s vibe, which I mean, if you like it, can be a very nice style, but yeah, it's not what we're necessarily going for, and more importantly, it's not something that aligns with the prompt that we have decided to input to ChatGPT. So this seems like a good moment to reflect on what we've been doing, right? So some thoughts that we've been having. ChatGPT is a better coder than it is a designer. I don't know, right? Just from this experiment, it's not a very thorough and rigorous experiment, but just from this one experiment, we feel like, yeah, it is like the code we're getting out of ChatGPT, especially when you're using GPT-4, is pretty high quality, right? If you're specific about what you want, you specify input, you specify output, you can even specify some constraints. It will usually be pretty close, or in any case, close enough for you that you can easily adjust the code to your own use case. The second one is, as a prompter, you need domain knowledge to get the best out of these models. And I think that is a very interesting notion, because let's go back to those prompts and see, right? I wrote these prompts. Sorry for that. And as you can see, the first ones, write a fast API get endpoint called documents, which returns a placeholder, a list of placeholder documents. That's a very specific description of what of how this functionality should look like. Also, the syntactical choices kind of right, they're kind of recognizable if you are a programmer, right? The slash documents kind of is probably it's probably like an API endpoint. Fast API, I didn't specify Python, but it just knew because Fast API is a Python framework, and it knows what it should return. So basically, everything you kind of need to describe this thing in normal, recognizable sense is in there, and that's very important because it's trained on internet data, so it has to be in the type of language that it recognizes to specify specifically what you mean. Now, I can already tell you, and maybe you already have seen from the previous example, I am not a designer, so now add styling to the code below such that it looks as smooth as a Streamlit one-page app. It's just a bad prompt, right? It's not specific. It's what does smooth like a Streamlit app mean? Maybe some of you don't know what Streamlit is. I can tell you it's a Python framework for making for making front ends. That's the actual front end for non-Frontenders framework. But it's just not right. I think it would be very interesting to see if a designer could come up with a prompt that would actually elicit a response that would lead to a nice looking web app. But yeah, we were not able to. We tried a couple of different ones. Yeah. So that kind of underlines the notion that we thought, yeah, you probably need a bit of domain knowledge to do this, right? If you're already in some domain, you already have some expertise, you just move faster. But if you don't have any knowledge, it can be a bit hard, right? You have to do a bit of research, and then maybe at some point you become off the back of that, you can become a really good prompter as well. Now, I have to do a shout out right here, because of course we're not going to present you the app that we just showed you. So I want to shout out to Marjolein School, Tico Rapos, and Daniel van Adrichem, who were so kind to help us out and basically jump the last hurdle, which is make this app look nice. And without further ado, let's take a look at the demo. And then we can actually see what would be inside this web app, would be a nice use case of generative AI. So right here, we have a document search engine demo, and you can see it's currently only says React documentation, and we can use it to search the React documentation. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is that even interesting? So I'm just gonna input right now. I can tell you it takes a bit of time, but we're gonna input what is use state used for, right? I don't know. I'm not a front-ender, so now it's gonna take a bit of time, and let me take that time to explain to you why this is taking a bit of time, right? What this is doing, it is using the OpenAI embeddings endpoint to basically generate a list of numbers that represent the meaning of the documents that we have chosen as input. And there it is. We'll jump into it after I'm done explaining this. And basically what it does is it makes a database where it stores these lists of numbers that have some meaning regarding the document that it's storing. And then it computes the same list of numbers for the input that you give as a human. So your question has like a numerical meaning, which kind of relates to its actual meaning. And by using that meaning, you can find the difference between other documents that are in that database. So using that method, you can find the most related documents in your database using text. So, and then what we're doing is we send this information as context to our question to ChatGPT, the GPT API. So it can use this context from the React documentation to actually answer our question specifically on the document about the documentation. So let's have a look. UseState is a hook used in React to declare a state variable in a component. It is a function imported from the React library and it's called at the top level of a component to declare one or more state variables. Now, again, I'm not a React connoisseur, so I don't quite know how accurate this is, but yeah, even if it's not right, it's a really cool starting point. But more importantly, because we know these language models can hallucinate, which means they can confidently come up with information that is not correct, and you might not be able to know it because they're pretty good with words. You can actually get the documents that it retrieved from the database here as well. So you can see it has found some usage from the UseState page. And we can actually open that and it will send us to UseState from the reference. And this part is the excerpt that it took from there and that it used to answer a question. And I had configured it to use 2 documents. So you can see there's another UseState reference thing here. I haven't read this actually. I don't know what exactly this means. But again, you get the link to the actual documentation. And for me, someone who doesn't know React, I think this could be a pretty interesting tool. So that might be my next project, to try and develop another web page, probably of similar quality, but now use this tool that we have built using ChatGPT, but also powered by ChatGPT. And there are some other examples that are already put here, right? This is again UseState. We ask it a bit about React hooks. I don't know exactly what they are, but yeah, maybe I'll read up on it later. Use effect, another great mystery to me. Yeah, I think it's really cool, and it just allows you to search through this and basically start off with some top level information before you dive into the docs. And I think that's a very useful thing that language models in general enable us to do. So yeah, that was the demo. I think maybe it's good to have another couple of thoughts that we find thought when we were doing this, when we kind of got to the end of this. one of those is generative AI is helping developers to get to MVPs, so minimal viable products, quicker. And I think this is very true. And this is also kind of the goal, like the hypothesis that we're trying to test during the development of this demo. I think the ugly implementation part that was really powered by ChatGPT took us less than a week, I think even like 2 days or something to build. And to be honest, I'm not a good enough programmer to do that in 2 days. That's going to take me longer, right? So it really sped us up. And the interesting thing is, like, it's not like you don't understand it if you're well versed in your programming language and your tools. You can still understand it. You can still edit it. It's just there already as like a scaffolding for your ideas. Secondly, it can bridge the knowledge gap between developers to reach better understanding. I think that was something that I found very nice. So when we were running into this brick wall with the design problem, we actually connected with people from the front end department at Sogeti, and we got in touch with some people. And because we already, even though we didn't know how this framework works, we already had some scaffolding set up. We already had some baseline of how we want this thing to look. I think it was really easy to hand it over to people from front end and designers to improve it. And if you already have this web page in the middle of your session, you have something tangible to brainstorm about. And I think that's a very valuable thing. And to me, it was really a pleasure to do this. And I've learned really a lot. Lastly, I think generative AI can make web apps more interactive. And the way I think this was one example of it. But you can see how this can evolve into an entire chatbot where you can just keep on questioning it, going deeper and deeper, kind of like a domain-specific chat GPT, and how this can really help you out, making really cool, interactive, chattable web pages. Now, for you front-enders, if that don't know Python, I just want to know the tool that we use to build this is called LangChain. LangChain is a library that allows you to do all these things, to chain basically language models together with prompt chains and really cool stuff. If you're interested in looking at that, please have a look. It's a lot of fun. And there's also langchain.js, although I cannot vouch for its quality because LangChain itself has dropped in December, and it's kind of like a Python first package. So I don't know how good it is, but if JavaScript or TypeScript is your main language, I think that would be a really cool package to look at. And if you do, and you think it's nice, or you think it's very buggy or whatever, which it might be, then send me a message. I would really like to know your experience with LangChain.js. And I guess that's it. I do have to do another shout out. Tico Rapos, Damian van Adegem, Marjolein School, and of course, you couldn't be here, Shahryar Masoumi. Thank you very much.
Well, it's beautiful to see how you manage some AI, some front end, but also need the human factor, right?
Yeah,
that's very important.
I think so too. Yeah.
I see there's a question in the chat. What happens if you ask a question where ChatGPT is not able to find the answer in the provided documentation?
Oh, that is a very good question, actually. I haven't tried that, to be honest. I think what it will do is this really depends on the implementation that you use. So right now, I basically just give it the documentation and say, answer this question. So you could see if the documentation doesn't fit the actual subject, I still asked it to write a response. So by using the right prompt, you can change how it responds, right? In this case, it would probably just come up with some response related to React because it knows some React. I guess it knows React pretty well since it wrote our web app, but you can also add into that prompt that you've designed yourself. If you don't know the answer or the answer is not contained in this piece of text, you can respond by saying that. Like I found two pieces of the two most related documents that I found do not contain any information. So to answer your question specifically, it really depends on the implementation. But if what I would qualify as a good implementation is if you actually take that into account when developing the prompt.
Nice. Well thought out. I see there's another question from your co-presenter actually.
Oh.
If you put creativity level to 0, then usually you get an I don't know.
Oh yeah, maybe that also works. Yeah. I haven't tried that yet. There's creativity. There's temperature, which kind of relates to creativity. I don't really know about that. I haven't got too much experience with that.
Is your own creativity right now?
Yeah. Although the temperature is higher.
You can also use that in ChatGPT by temp is and then the amount that you want to use. So
that's really
you
interesting.
can actually even play it, but it is to a certain level because you are using the OpenAI, I think, the API itself.
Yeah.
And then you can really add it to the AI settings. And ChatGPT is doing that a bit underwater just to make sure that you still can use it, but it's on a certain different level than if you're using it via the API.
I'm also curious, how did the designers and frontenders experience it that you came there? Hey, I'm a data scientist. I created the front end and some design. What do you guys think about it? What was their first initial reaction?
Yeah, I can only say, so I cannot look into their heads, right? But I can. So I'm not going to vouch for what they thought about us when we reached out in that way. But yeah, they. I think they were quite interested in helping us, and of course, like it's always cool to build something, right? So yeah, I hope they liked it as well.
You joined forces within social.
Exactly.
Nice. Yeah, people and technology, that's what we're all about. But the discussions, we need some more people over here. So please come in front of us. We have 2 spontaneous guests. We did not prepare this, but it's really fun to see like this happening. We will start sharing the screen again because today we have another special session. We had 2 awesome lightning talks, Frontend Lighting Talks. But without further ado, I see it's not currently working, the sharing the screen. Now it is. Yes, we came to the right statements, guys. And we have 2 very special guests over here. We had dinner with them. So please introduce yourself. This is Emil.
Yeah, I'm the subject matter expert on front-end within Solution.
Nice. And we have Ferry.
Yeah, Ferry Zemans, software architect, Microsoft.
Nice. Welcome, guys, to join the discussion so last minute. Really awesome to do this. But for you at home, it's also important because we want to share your experiences. We are here with 5 people, but we want to know your experience as well. You can do it in the chat, and I will enable the microphones in a few seconds. So you can also put on your microphone and just talk with us directly. That's also fine. And then you can connect with our presenters. For the discussion joining, we will do like a yes and no in the reactions. You can do it on the right top, I think, on your Teams. You can do the thumbs up or the left icon for the yes and no. You will see it right away. For now, I will do the one technical part of giving everybody access to the microphones. So be aware of that as well. Small reminder, it's getting recorded. So just so you know. Just so you know. And if you have a statement that you want to discuss, that's also possible, right? And then you can also put it in the chat. Okay. So if you want to say something, put on your microphone. But for now, we will join the discussions first on the panel. The first statement for today is AI will change our dev jobs forever. And in the chat, you can react with the emoticons with yes and no, of course. Please do that so we have like a small interpretation of what your opinion is. But right now, is anybody really enthusiastic to talk about this? Maybe you have something to mention?
Now I see, I was already a bit looking to my screen because I can also see what the people are voting at home, but I see a lot of thumbs up.
Thumbs up?
And I think it will definitely make an impact on our work, right? So what I mentioned in my presentation already is that I'm using it to speed up my work. So I try to make like something that it made it easier to think about, and that's where I came up with that IDE part. So that is something we all know, that if you're not using an IDE, yeah, you already said I would
so
do something
surprised.
about
Yeah,
it.
why would you do it?
But that is for me already a bit on generative AI. If I'm using it and people are struggling with text-based things, I'm like, yeah, but ChatGPT can help you with that. So that is really something that I would expect to be even more in the future.
Interesting indeed. Maybe Sven, do you have some timelines for it, or you think like this is interesting?
Oh, yeah.
It's a broad question. I know you don't have the answer probably, but from your data perspective, are we there yet? Or
I mean, I think we just started moving in that direction, right? Like there's going to be so much more investment in this entire space. So I think already it's very interesting what you can do and how as a developer it can speed up your workflow. I think it does really depend on what kind of developer you are. So for instance, I use a lot of Python, and Python is one of the tasks that it has been trained on a lot and been evaluated on a lot. It's called human eval, which contains a lot of Python code. So it's really good at that. But you could also see how it might be much less in, for instance, Prolog, right? I don't know if anyone had that in university or or something else, but it's I don't know how good it will be at that, right? So I think that also plays a role.
It's already included in Copilot from GitHub, the newest version.
nice, good to hear. And I see there's also in the chat, interns I supervise love ChatGPT for everything. So maybe not only your dev job, but for student time as well. Great to see that. Is there anybody else in the chat who wants to speak up, maybe, or join the discussion? That's also possible. I'll give you a few seconds. No? All right, that's fine. Due to time, I think let's go to our next statement. AI is great for hobby projects, but not professional production code. So, well, we see a nice hobby project, I must say, here is the production code. But we are working at clients. And how can we use it? Maybe Freddie, Emil.
Yeah, well, what I think is that writing good code is craftsmanship, basically. So you can use ChatGPT to enhance it or to enhance your productivity or to make sure you can develop faster or get some ideas on some new perspectives on things. At the end, it still comes down to craftsmanship in order to write professional production code, which ChatGPT or any other AI model can help you with. So I think it can definitely be used for production code, but it will not go straight to production with your own supervision.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's basically the same as Stack Overflow. So you don't only copy and paste the code, but you have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference, I guess.
And a little bit supercharged as well. So if you have a good context, for example, I wrote a small dev server for a project that I was working on, and you could, if you want to Google it or use Stack Overflow, you need to find maybe 5 or 6 pages, and here you say this is the context. It needs to have these criteria, these requirements, and it all combined it in. You need to run these commands. You need to set up this code. So in the end, you spend like 5 minutes to set it up instead of like half an hour, or something like that.
In the chat, they also mentioned like usually 70 to 80% accuracy. So for production code, it's actually nice. And then have that last bit of craftsmanship over there to really think it's okay and good enough. Basically.
Maybe also for the discussion part, because it's a trained model, which is a little bit outdated. So it's not 2023, it's 2021 or something like that. And so maybe there are new coding standards or new techniques. And as a professional, you are learning always about the latest and the greatest and how to apply new tricks. And it can help you a lot, but it might not effectively know all the latest and greatest things that you are using as standards nowadays. So that's something that you can, I think, add to the mix.
Yeah, maybe it's good to mention there that the free version from ChatGPT is trained up till 2021, but the premium version is actually connected to the internet, so you can get the latest and greatest from there. And I agree with both of you, because I still wouldn't use it on production code. I'm a bit afraid of that, but definitely if we're talking about ChatGPT, but if we're talking to OpenAI, then there are actually already companies, and they were even on Dutch television, so I was pretty amazed by that, who are completely relying on the OpenAI model. So they just have everything on their production, and their developers really just do the pull requests. So you can imagine that there are already some companies thinking completely different on the opposite. I wouldn't do it, but it's there already. So what will the future bring?
Please don't forget what you're doing.
I think that's a general consent thing, right?
Definitely, if you're using ChatGPT, please keep in mind that it is really in an environment created to test this idea. So everything that you do on there will be available to definitely the creators, but maybe even further than that, because they are training it again on the input. So yeah, I don't think you want that. So definitely not for production code. So be aware.
Yeah, it's good to note as well that Samsung didn't take this into account. Right? It put some source code for internal source code into there, and it actually leaked that afterwards, because it was I don't know if it was trained on it or how that exactly went wrong. But yeah, it is a liability, right? So also if you're using it for production code, be smart about it, right? If you need a single function, and again you can define the inner and the output, then it can be very useful, and probably it's also accurate. But if you're vague about it and you're going to let it write a lot of code and you're not going to test it and just force push to main, then then you're going to have issues, of course. So decide where on that spectrum you kind of want to be.
Talking about the spectrums, where are you when you were using AI as a non-frontender? Can you actually be a frontender without the knowledge? Relying on AI.
I want to plead a fifth on this.
Well, maybe it's nice to get a perspective from a Mule or SMA here at Society about frontend, because frontend knowledge is what we love and do. We are at the Frontend Lighting Talks. So yeah, interested in your opinion.
Yeah, I think it still comes down to craftsmanship, but that's also saying from someone who's an expert on front end, but not mainly on AI. So it's happening really fast. So I'm not going to predict the future here or saying what will happen in a few years.
Impossible, of course.
We'll see that it's helping you out a lot more. So I already saw a lot of cool plugins that you can use within your IDE. Use it. And I think it can just speed up a lot of productivity, and it helps you a lot. But at the moment, I also saw in the demo app, you need some expertise, basically, also writing the right questions.
Nice combination between people and technique in that case. Awesome. At home, is there somebody who wants to jump in with the microphone and wants to join the discussion? Because then you have a direct line with us, of course. Don't be scared. It's possible. I see. I saw Michael van der Lisselonk also there, old speaker at Frontend Lighting Talks, so he knows how to present. We'll be fine.
I think you scared them by saying it is recorded.
Maybe for next time. We're also open for feedback, right? So if you feel like this should not be recorded, then for next time we can do it as well. But it's nice to give something to the viewers who could not make it in that case.
I think this statement is also related to that idea that I mentioned, that you do need to have domain knowledge, right? If you don't even know which components go into a web app, or which you might need, or you might forget very important things, right? This would probably be the case if I would get the assignment to actually put something in production, right? Something that's big. I would lose the overzicht. I would lose the view of like the bird's eye view of things. And that I can see how that could lead to problems that you wouldn't have if you have front-end knowledge.
Yeah, I would like to challenge that, because if you make it interactive and you ask questions to those models and then you continue on it, then for example, those models can help you define the domain that you need and then actually create whatever you want to achieve.
Actually, I think that's quite true. Yeah, that's true.
But it's going to take much more time.
Yeah, yes. Because you will have to. You will have to. If you're gonna do this, you will have to validate everything to see if it's not a hallucination. Because yeah, that's that could lead you astray.
But again, you can put that off if you would like to with temperature 0 or repetition, or there are a lot of settings that you can adjust within. Yeah, I don't know all models, but definitely, for example, if you're using Midjourney, where you can create images on, then if you know those settings, then it will really help you because there are like a lot of there. So definitely worth looking into.
Nice. Well, talking about learning as well. The next statement is AI is a worse teacher than the tutorial hell for developers. Pretty known, I guess, all the courses, etc. I've personally seen that AI can really help you with some coaching, etc. So that's nice. It's going to really teach you something. Well, maybe Freddy.
Yeah, I think so. For instance, your application that you created with React. I think you can teach something from it. The things it does, and it does it according to the things he found on the internet. So, but is it enough to be a developer powered by AI? I don't know, but
it's good at explaining. So it comes up with an example. It comes, you see that sometimes also with Stack Overflow, for example, that it's giving an answer straight, but not saying how it came to the answer, or providing enough details. With a demo, for example. And when you ask it a question, you do see that you get a good result back, most of the time accurate, 90% I hear. But it's explaining itself quite understandably.
Yeah, and it remembers the context, so you can ask for certain things that he already answered. So
yeah, I also think it's learning is a lot, to me at least, is a lot about doing. And I know one of the issues with tutorial hell, because I have experience.
I think everybody has. Yeah,
visited all 9 rings of it, and yeah, the thing is, you just see, right? You see this typing, and it's just a hassle to type everything over, right, and follow along, and then you don't really learn all that much. Well, if you ask ChatGPT a question, you get the code. And if you ask for an explanation and some unit tests along with it, you can really get like practical with it straight away and start understanding the concept. And I think that's one of the things that defines tutorial help.
I think you pretty much summed it up. Well, we already talked a lot about context and how it's involved with crafting prompts, for instance, or just your general what you want to build, give it some context. But using AI in companies will never work because of the specific company context. Is that a yes? Is that a no? What are the opinions here?
Yeah, define work. Yeah,
define work. Yeah, will never work.
Yeah.
In what use cases would it not work, Freddy?
Yeah, some specific company context, I don't think it's going to be the best solution, but it can help in more general things. So maybe it will work, but not for every case.
And maybe it's also after a while becoming more. It takes you more time to explain the whole context. Like if you have a very specific architecture with some different choices that are not really publicly used, or you are pioneering a little bit and you are using things that are not on the internet yet. So we see that at clients because the applications that we are building are becoming more complex and bigger in its size, and also the architecture is becoming more complex. The way you are using the prompts and the context that you're providing is then becoming more needed, basically, to give the right context. And at the same time, it becomes more harder and harder. And after a while, you think like, let's just program it myself or just get the knowledge myself, because it's taking more time to give that whole context.
Yeah, and also, as you already mentioned, like GDPR constraints are a real thing. So if you work for a company here in Europe and you don't have an Azure instance of in Europe of GPT-3 or GPT-4, then yeah, you might not be compliant, and you wouldn't even be able to use it at all if you're gonna put company details in that context. So it might not even be an option, right? So in that case, I can see how it wouldn't work. It does say using AI, so we could see maybe like 5 years in the future where every company has a GPT-7, right? So yeah, I think never is a bit is too strong of a qualifier.
I think if you can think about on-premise things, so that we have something here at work which will do the work for us, so the model itself, then it will not go anywhere. So you can actually store all the company details, etc. So that can be used then. But yeah, the question is then, will we go there, and how will it look like?
How will the future look like?
So I think also never is too big, but
if we know how the future look like, we'll be living differently, I guess. Yeah, the same with AI, right? 2 years ago, I didn't know about this. For instance, I was not thinking about, oh, maybe I should use it every day. Well, see how it changed. Well, this is also interesting. Currently, you have a skill set for front-end developers and developers in general. Will this be one of the requirements in the future for developers? So if we're looking at recruitment, for instance, will it say prompt engineering in there? I have
good question. I mean, it doesn't say in there which IDE do you use.
Yeah.
It's also kind of implied. So it might not even say that, but yeah, I can see how it's I can see how you would be much more effective in building, for instance, a portfolio to if you use ChatGPT. So like then it also will be easier to sell yourself to a company, right? So.
Yeah, and actually, we discussed it up front, of course. And I've already seen vacancies where this for prompt engineering itself, so where people this is their work, of course, and I can imagine that because you have seen it as well. It's really challenging to write the right prompt and to play around with it. So that's definitely there. But that's also it was written down in vacancies for example. Developers. So I didn't specify it on front-end developers. I didn't check that, but just on the developers. And I was really thinking about that. So before you didn't have like experts on Stack Overflow or something like that, right? So I was a bit wondering, it's kind of fast to ask something like this, but yeah, I really think that this will speed up, and but
will it become required?
Now, eventually, I hope that's also what I'm advocating a bit at other places, but that the prompting part will be really easy. Now it's the challenge to get the right prompts, right? You can build the applications. We just have seen a very nice example with ChatGPT. So that is not the biggest thing. So you can also make the connection to OpenAI and how to work with that by ChatGPT, for example. But writing that prompt to do it is something different. So I really hope that writing that prompt will become way easier, and there are a lot of tools already for that, but I'm not really happy with the state of those tools yet, but I think that will change quite well as well.
Is it maybe also riding along the hype to now put it in your on your website? You use prompt engineering because people are diving into it, and they see an open vacancy and it lists ChatGPT and all those kind of things. Well, at the end, a company wants productive workers, so you want to increase your productivity, you want to don't do repetitive tasks, and I think then prompt engineering is part of that. But for me, it feels like a little bit adding some hype words into your vacancies to make it more smooth.
Means to an end.
It's also pretty hard to quantify, right? How good is your prompt engineering?
I can ask questions.
Yeah, indeed. Nice. Are there any statements from the chat you would like us to discuss? That's possible. I don't think there are, but this is your last call. If not, then it's fine. Well, thank you for this small discussion. We will be doing this more in the future and more in depth, like these statements. So please let us know what you think about it as well. This was the statement session. Let's continue looking ahead, of course, when we will use AI in the daily jobs. But we have a summer stop. The Frontend Lighting Talks will be back in September, probably about security cloud in the front end. And after that, front-end architecture. And we will do a session with design again. But feel free to contact us if you think like, hey, I want to present, hey, I want to know about the subject. Our contact details are on the meetup page. So just feel free to send us a chat, really informal. We like to think about technology and the people, and you're at home the people we want. If there are any leftover questions or maybe Emil or Freddie who just joined, that's also possible. But in general, thank you, Jeroen. Thank you, Sven, for the presentations. Thank you, Emil and Freddie, for joining the discussion. And thank you, Suas, the cameraman in the back, waving at us. Also very important work. If that's all, then everybody have a great evening and see you at the next Lightning Talks. Thank you all.